The Chaser Report is recorded on Gadigal land.
Striving for mediocrity in a world of excellence. This is the Chaser Report.
Hello and welcome to the Chaser Report. I'm so pleased to say that we once again have Mr. Andrew Hansen live from Australia's biggest city, Melbourne. Here, Andrew, hello.
Hooray! It's a huge privilege to be talking to our little brothers there in Sydney, the cute little second city of Australia, as we like to think of it.
That's right, the little city that once could and now apparently can't.
Yeah, how are you going there in your funny little town?
Not bad, yeah. I've been feeling like everyone knows everyone else in this city and we're all neighbours and, yeah.
It must be quite quaint to live in a small place like that.
Oh, gosh, people don't mind their own business, though, in this town.
Oh, town gossips, are there?
There's once one person shakes someone else, everyone knows all about it.
Oh, everybody knows, of course they would. Yeah. It's not like the lovely anonymous metropolis that I live in here in the city of Melbourne.
Cosmopolitan.
Oh, look, it's the Shanghai of Australia, really, here.
Oh, I just booked a trip to Melbourne. I'm going to go down in October.
To the big smoke.
Well, look, I know.
Prepare yourself.
I'm worried.
It's not like your quiet, sleepy little village.
I'm worried I'll be intimidated by the big fancy people in the big city.
Yeah, you'll be bemused by the hustle and bustle here, Dommy, and although it never stops.
Tall buildings. In fact, Melbourne does have much taller buildings than Sydney. I read an article about it the other day.
Well,
it's quite a big difference these days.
Very poorly built. Yes, they've got. I did read the other day that Victoria has the weakest apartment standards of any state, and I think maybe that's why the buildings are so tall, because they don't have to really match many standards.
Absolutely.
And they can just keep building them up and up and up.
So I'm looking forward to heading back down. I'm going to wrap my belongings in a handkerchief and put a stick and sort of put it over my shoulder. That's the way I travel.
Like the country mouse and the city mouse, Tommy. I'll show you the wonders of the city.
That would be great. Now, look, speaking of travel and air travel, you've got a story for us today.
Look, I've been intrigued. Trend. I have discovered a TikTok trend, and that's big for me because I'm too old to know about TikTok trends. And of course, I discovered it because I'm, in my fuddy-duddy old-fashioned way, I like to get information from hilariously outdated, reliable sources like the BBC and so on. So I noticed, there is a worrying trend, as all TikTok trends are. They're all worrying. This worrying trend is called raw dogging, and I think we do need to explore it on the podcast because it's a big oversight.
Let's get into it in just a second. When I first heard this term raw dogging, Andrew, it sounds sort of sexual, it sounds unprotected, it sounds a little bit dangerous, if you don't mind me saying so.
Well, look, what I read, Dommy, is that it's mostly practiced by men.
Right.
And I've had the opposite take of you. I was surprised. I thought with such a dainty and feminine name as raw dogging, I thought it would be really appealing to
what
young,
ladies did at
young
book
women.
club.
Exactly, or the Country Women's Association.
Sure.
I wondered if it was something to do with them, that they all gathered around for a good session of raw dogging over there.
Is that when you bake scones and you leave them a little bit undercooked? Is that what it is? Slightly undercooked scone?
No, I'll tell you what look, for the uninitiated who, like me before I, read my old-fashioned articles about it, there's a TikTok thing where when people get on a flight, especially a long flight, it's seen as it's a challenge, it's a test of your stamina to see whether you can go through the whole flight with no frills and no enjoyment whatsoever.
No frills and no enjoyment.
Take a photo, or you've got to take a photo of yourself sitting there, and you're not allowed to use the in-flight entertainment. You're not allowed to eat or drink, and you're not allowed to use the toilet. You have to sit in your seat for the entire flight, no matter how long that flight may be. And there's a famous sports person who photographed himself doing this, which I think was one reason it sort of took off. It's rumoured that it might have originated from a Seinfeld plot line where one of Elaine's boyfriends likes to sit on an aeroplane and not use the entertainment. But anyway, that's the challenge. You've got to just sit on your flight and do nothing and record the experience. But it got me thinking, Dommy, I don't think it's difficult enough. I just don't think that is tough enough a challenge.
And Andrew, we're of a certain age now. We're middle-aged gentlemen now. That despite the frivolity of our work, and we were alive in the 80s. And isn't this just what air travel was like in the 80s? Admittedly, you could use a toilet, But I remember going on my first flight ever anywhere, which was to London from Sydney, and there was absolutely nothing to do for the entire period. I think I listened to the audio. There was one audio channel for kids that lasted about half an hour, and I listened to it fully 30 times over, I think, by the time we got there. And I reckon that is far worse than any raw dogging you could do today.
It would be any form of children's entertainment. It would be much more punishing than raw dogging. No, absolutely. Well, it's right. It does hark back to that era. Although, as you say, we at least were permitted to use the toilet.
Yes, that's a little extreme, I feel.
Well, no, I feel it doesn't go far enough. I really think it's too easy. I mean, this is a test of your masculinity, right? That's what this raw dogging trend is. It's a test of your strength, and you're supposed to boast about it on social media. I think, why not introduce some extra elements of hardship to the flight?
Oh yeah,
like I would suggest you have to stand, not sit, like you do on a crowded bus.
Wow.
I mean, some commuters, we stand on a crowded bus or train. I'd say to stand in the aisle would be one thing, or maybe even like two to a seat. I mean, why enjoy an entire seat to yourself? Yeah. Perhaps you and your friend should squeeze together in the one seat.
Squash dogging.
Squash dogging. I want to see some squash dogging going on the flight.
You make me think. I mean, the last time I caught a flight, I actually had to get up constantly because I was with my two children and my wife, and it was late at night, and she had the kids, and I needed to sort of get up and fetch things. And there were always, they didn't let us board early, so our million bags were in about 10 different lockers. So I had to just get up constantly and get different things that people wanted from different bags.
You're one of those families, right?
Yeah, and so what happened as a result was that every second I got up, the flight attendants, they seemed then at that exact second to be serving drinks with a trolley. And I reckon it's far harder to have to constantly go, oh, sorry, excuse me, and stand sideways while the trolley brushes past you and feel like a massive dick constantly, rather than just sitting there. Standing up's much harder.
That is harder, and you're so right about the trolley. I mean, I'd be impressed if I saw a guy trolley dogging.
Trolley dogging.
Like where you have to stand and slowly move behind the trolley, especially if you need to do a huge poo.
Yes.
That's when the trolley's always out, isn't it? And it's always at the moment you have to sort of shuffle along behind the trolley waiting for the various passengers to order their wild turkey.
Yes.
Why is it on flights that's where people drink wild turkey? I've never seen anyone in my life drink a wild turkey, and yet for some reason on an aeroplane everybody orders one of those things.
It's amazing. Yeah, so there's also the moment when the trolleys come from each direction. That's always, I don't even know how that works. How can trolleys come simultaneously from, but they do. It's like chicken.
Have you ever seen it happen? I've never seen the two
can't.
trolleys pass each other.
I don't know how it works.
It's like a circus trick. It's like some sort of magician's trick.
It's extraordinary. So that would make things harder. The other thing is, I think I once had an experience. The one time I flew Philippine Airlines to the Philippines. It was an extraordinary experience. It was with a whole group of friends. Yeah. They'd just gotten some new planes, and this was back in the days when there wasn't seat back entertainment. There was one screen for everybody. So they had these very clever TVs that retracted in the ceiling. And I think they just
I think there's still. I caught a flight the other day that had, that.
So that was all that they had.
I think it was a Qantas.
Oh, right. Well, this is what happened. It wasn't flat screen TVs. It was sort of CRT TVs, and they just got this new plane. I think it was $50 cheaper for the Philippine Airlines flight, so we left 16 hours late. And then we're finally on the plane, and what happened was they showed the movie. They started the movie, and then 10 minutes into the movie, the TVs retracted and broke for about 20 minutes. And then they finally got it to work again, and it started again from the start. And then 10 minutes in, it retracted again. And this happened the entire way to Manila. It's about, 10 hours. I can't remember the movie. It wasn't a good movie.
It kept breaking its exact same point.
Dumb and Dumber or something. It was, or some rom-com, some lame rom-com from the late 90s. And every time, 10 minutes in, oh God, it's retracted again. So I reckon that's far worse than no entertainment, because they had the music, they had the soundtrack going over the PA. You couldn't possibly avoid it.
Oh, you couldn't avoid it. So you must. How do you not remember what the movie was, Tommy? You must have seen the first 10 minutes of that film.
Therapy.
At least 12 times.
Therapy. It may have been
I see.
It might have been half decent. It might have been The Princess Bride or something, where you really enjoyed the first 10 minutes, but then each time it got progressively less funny until you couldn't bear it anymore.
Well, I see that's a trend that I think would be a more manly challenge for TikTok would be loop dogging, where you have to watch the entertainment, but you're only allowed to watch the first 5 minutes of the film, and then you have to watch it again. The first 5 minutes over and over for the entire flight. And I think that would be a tough challenge.
What would the movie be that you'd subject people to? Over and over again?
It should be a dreary film, shouldn't it? Yes. Yeah. Subject them to,
like The Notebook or something.
Well, yeah, or some Warren Beatty movie from the 1980s or something.
Waterworld, perhaps.
Maybe the first 5 of Waterworld. Subject them to that over and over again. Or, yeah.
Or You've Got Mail.
Yes, there's a good one. There's a good one.
Yep.
Yeah, it's the You've Got Mail dogging.
Meg dogging. Yeah. All right. So that's pretty good. What else? You're not allowed to eat anything or drink anything? So you get pretty dehydrated.
No, you do. This is why it's considered dangerous, because people think, you need to hydrate on a flight, and also holding on from going to the toilet is probably not very good for you.
But you know what would be worse for you, Andrew, would be consuming Weet-Bix. Raw Weet-Bix.
Raw Weet-Bix. Raw dogging.
Yes. That thing you do as a kid when you just bite into a raw Weet-Bix and your mouth goes
and your whole mouth
as dry as anything?
I'd like to see that, that maybe it's a Weet-Bix-based challenge where you've got to watch You've Got Mail, but only the first 5 minutes with your mouth full of Weet-Bix for the full flight. The other problem is that the challenge ends at the end of the flight. I mean, if you really wanted a challenge, it should be, it should be raw holidaying.
Yes.
I think that you should book yourself a holiday for, say, 3 weeks. And then when you arrive, you have to sit in a chair in your hotel room doing nothing and staring at the wall for the whole 3 weeks.
Wow.
Like raw vacationing.
Yeah, so you can't leave the room. You certainly can't go to the toilet, I presume.
No, I think no toilet and no food and drink. If you want somebody to be impressed with you on TikTok, you've got to push the challenge.
That's true. You've got to go. And also, you're raw dogging, but you're filming it for TikTok at the same time. So you are using a phone at the very least.
That's true. That's a form of entertainment. You're posting. Yeah. Yeah, that's the ultimate raw dogging, isn't it? It's not even to post the challenge and not tell anybody that you did it. Just do it.
Wouldn't that
and
be
just
great?
know.
I love it.
You just know deep down in your heart that you raw dogged.
That's very tough. I think small talk should potentially be part of the challenge because there's nothing worse on a flight. Like you're raw dogging, at least you're sort of self-contained. It's having to sit next to an incredibly tedious neighbour who wants to chat.
Oh, that'd be great. And they tell you about their work. Or next to the parent. I mean, baby dogging.
Oh, yes.
Like if you're next to the baby.
The crying baby.
Who vomits and crawling all over you while you're trying to have a snooze, perhaps.
So you can't do a shit, but the baby certainly does while on you.
Yes. And one of those babies where the parents do the nappy change on the tray table.
Yes, on the tray table. We've all seen it.
Yeah,
not going to comment on whether I've done it, but yes.
Well,
that's pretty raw.
Got to do what you got to do.
Doesn't get much rawer than changing a nappy.
No, well,
after
perhaps
a
that's
bit of
the
diarrhea.
ultimate challenge. I mean, this is perhaps how you could push the thing where you're not allowed to go to the toilet. Maybe you can go to the toilet, but you've got to change yourself on the tray table after you've done it.
With an adult nappy.
You get on the plane with an adult nappy. Then you change yourself on the tray table halfway through the flight. This is a challenge. I think that's getting really tough.
That's getting very tough.
And you get so many shares, so many likes or whatever. How does TikTok work?
Oh, I don't know.
What's it got? Likes or something?
Let me look it up and I'll come back to you after this little ad.
The Chaser Report. News a few days after it happens.
Okay, so I think it's hearts. There's likes of some kind. So
yeah, right.
But Andrew, isn't it harder? I mean, just saying no to everything's fine. But what if you had to be the opposite? What if you had to say yes to everything? So every time they offered you something, you had to say yes. More drinks. I mean, surely what David Boone did on that flight, where he had the 63 beers or whatever it was, is far harder than any raw dog accomplishment. You've got to say yes to seconds of the disgusting dessert, little blancmange dessert that they give you. You've got to finish your neighbours off.
Well, sorry, Dommy, but which airlines have you flown where they actually ask you if you want something else? I mean, are you flying first class on the
Philippine Airlines,
the King Charles's own private aeroplane?
No, I'm thinking more of the middle of the night they sort of put out these little sad packets of dried peanuts and stuff.
Yes, or maybe you have to ask. Is that the thing?
Oh, that could be it.
It's ask dogging. You have to ask and ask and ask for more and more and more. You're not allowed to stop asking.
You got to keep pressing the call symbol. Can you imagine that? that would be much harder. So, I mean, it would be much more awkward than raw dogging.
I think so. And no sooner have you finished that packet of dried fruits or whatever awful thing they give you've got to ask for another one.
Yes. You got to just keep the snacks coming, pretzels, whatever it might be. Yep, that's you've got to actually use all the items that they give you, the little mask and the vomit bag, and you got to find a use. So you're just constantly doing stuff, having to entertain yourself without the entertainment system. That I think is the thing. You can't just watch movies. That's cheating. Unless it's the first 5 minutes.
No, of course not. No. But I think we're onto something there. Yes. What are we calling it? Ask dogging, full dogging. Well, what's the opposite of raw? I suppose cooked dogging.
Cooked dogging. Yeah. Like that could be, but no. I must say this is an idea that I think people should adopt in other areas of life too. I mean, it's fine for a plane, but what about if on a first date you sat there,
yes.
You didn't order anything, you didn't drink anything,
That's a
you
great
didn't get out of your chair,
maybe didn't speak either. Just stared.
Just stared moodily.
Raw dogging your way through the date.
Yeah, just glaring at the other person. If you get a second date under those circumstances, you'd be doing very, very well.
Well, you might. It might be better than talk. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people have been on dates where they probably would have preferred had the person never opened their mouth.
But I love the social awkwardness of just going to a restaurant and just not ordering a thing and not speaking when spoken to. Just sitting there.
Yeah. Like you could raw dog your way through a job interview too, I think.
Yes.
I think, just turn up, say nothing, just sit there, stare at them. Wait for the boss to give you the information.
Yeah, what would you bring to this job? Literally nothing. Yeah. That's great. What if you did it?
Tell me.
In a court case. You're being questioned on the dock. That's extreme raw dogging.
Oh,
when
yes.
you've sworn an oath to answer the questions, and you absolutely I can respect that raw dogging.
Yeah, I could see perhaps a psychiatrist raw dogging their way through a session with a patient. Just sit there and say nothing the entire hour long. Say nothing to the client and see how they take it. I mean, it might be good for them. They could vent. They wouldn't get interrupted.
Well, most of them don't want to be interrupted anyway. I mean, most people probably just want to talk about their thing without having to have their stream of consciousness interrupted. But
I guess.
I think possibly the most extreme version of this, and one that I think we need to get on board with, is a raw dogged podcast where the theme music plays.
Oh.
And nothing is said.
And there's a silent podcast. What about tomorrow? Why do we make that tomorrow's episode?
I think
the raw dog episode of the Chaser Report.
That would be an amazing
and it should be as long as a flight. It should be as long as a flight. It should be like 7 or 8 hours of silence.
Why don't we just put a little bit of audio?
Our gear is from road at the end.
We'll just put a little bit of audio in there, and someone's got to find it. And I'll tell you what, we'll give you, I don't know, some sort of crappy Chaser prize if you email. First person to email podcast@chaser.com.au with the time code with the one thing that's said in the Raw Dog episode of the Chaser Report. I wonder what the ratings will be like.
I think they'll be off the charts.
I think they'll be much better.
The raw dog, raw dogging is in. It's a very popular thing at the moment, Dommy. People could listen. You could get on a flight and listen to the Raw Dog podcast episode on the flight if you like.
All right, so I think 10 hours long.
Maybe 10 hours.
Put some audio. Yeah, because the last flight I was on was 10 hours long. We'll do that. Put a little bit of audio there somewhere, and you've got to email the time code to podcast@chaser.com.au. You don't cheat. Don't skip forward. Don't look at it. Bring it into an audio app. Listen properly. Don't cheat. You're raw dog.
You're not allowed to skip. You got to raw dog it properly. In fact, like if you're really tough, you will submit along with your submission. You'll submit a video of yourself that goes for the full 10 hours of you sitting there with your headphones on.
Fantastic.
Listening.
That would be.
We'll check it. That'll really make it legit.
If someone does that, what do they get? I think they probably deserve more than we can access. I don't know. We'll give something
look,
good.
Surely that's worth a bit. I mean, that's worth whatever. I don't know what Charles Firth has in the Chaser vault these days. He runs it. He could produce some sort of prize, couldn't he?
Yep. If someone bothers to do that.
A few back issues of the Chaser.
A full 10 hours. Can we give away lunch with Charles Firth?
Oh, it can't be a booby prize. I mean, that's a cruel
good
prize.
Yeah, okay. Well, look, let's see how we go with this.
Let's see how we go with that. So the video is the big thing to
the grand
for.
prize.
But if you can't do that, then just mention what the
find the time code.
Audio. Find the time code,
and that gets us out of doing an episode for tomorrow, which I just that's fine.
Well, Well, not really. I'm going to be working very hard, Dommy, on that 10
Oh,
hours
yeah.
of silence. We have to record.
Oh,
you
shit.
and I have to sit
We've
here
got to
for 10
record
hours
it in real
recording.
time.
Yes, we've got to record the silence.
Okay.
That's going to take a long time for us to do.
Yeah, we wouldn't cheat it, in
No,
the app.
no.
God,
I'm
no.
going to sit here and make sure that there's no sound
Yep.
for 10 hours.
Imagine how long it'll take to download the audio. You know what, though? The best thing about that is that it's longer than Chaz's podcast.
Yeah.
Chaz's 3-hour long
And-
pep
and-
podcast.
And probably more understandable.
I must say, I think also if you get through a whole episode of Pep with Chaz and Dr. Dave in one episode, that itself is worthy of some kind of prize. Apparently people do.
Yeah, imagine. Well, they'd be very clever people.
Either that or people with enormous amounts of time on their hands. All right, we've set the audience a challenge. We'll see how you go. We'll report back. Andrew, what a pleasure to, well, it's not really been raw dogging. It's, I don't know,
Rawcasting.
rawcasting, yeah.
Well,
rawcasting.
and tomorrow the blank one is the rawcast, isn't it?
Yeah.
Today has been the full dog.
Full dog. I'll see you tomorrow for 10 solid hours.
Yes.
At which, at some point, how will we know when to speak? We'll just sort of point at each other.
I think so. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Very good. Okay, Gears from Road. We're part of the Iconoclast Network, and we'll catch you next time.